Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to my channel. Today is a very exciting video. I'm so amped to film it. I've been looking forward to doing this for so long. I'm going to be doing a video that I was inspired to do by the one and only Lauren May Beauty. I'll link her channel in the cards and down below. And she did a video taking some palettes from her collection and basically like going over what shade was her favorite and what shade was her least favorite in the palettes. I don't know why this like video idea compelled me so much. I really was like infatuated with this idea. I think it's such a good idea. It's such a great way to like go over your palettes, I feel, and so interesting to see like what is your least and most favorite shade in the palette, because it's gonna like really depend on your makeup preferences, what you like, what you dislike, obviously, but that is going to be so different for everyone. And I also know that a Lil Panning on Instagram, who I love, her account did not this exact thing, but she has done in the past like least and most favorite shades and palettes and stuff, and so I also was inspired by her. And if you make videos on YouTube or you put up content on Instagram and you want to do this video or this idea, please do it and please let me know so I can go watch, because I just want so many people to do this, because I looked after watching Lauren's video and I feel like not that many people have done this, and I feel like I want everyone to do this. But I basically just like went through my palettes, counted them, then did like a random number generator and got 10 palettes out and just, you know, to choose to go through. And I feel like I got some good ones. I got some good palettes to go over. I'm really excited. So let's just get into it. I have looked over these already just for time's sake. So the first palette that I pulled is the Kaleidos Futurism 2 Cyber Bronze palette. I haven't used this in a while, and this is difficult because I love this palette so much and there's only 6 shades, so it's a narrow selection. Let me do my least favorite, I think. And this might be shocking, but I actually think that my least favorite shade in this whole palette is this red one up here. I don't know why. I think it's because the silver is beautiful. This rose gold shade up here is absolutely beautiful. And I love all 3 of these mattes. And this is a really beautiful red shimmer as well, but it's honestly more kind of like a satin shade. And I would prefer it if it was as intense and as incredibly metallic as the silver and the rose gold. The runner-up maybe would be this like camely brown, but I love this camely brown, and if that wasn't in this palette, I would probably pull something similar to use in conjunction with this palette. So I just gotta give it to this red shade. It's just not, it's not the one, unfortunately, even though it is really beautiful. My most favorite shade is gotta be this dark brown. It may be boring, but at the end of the day, if this wasn't in here, I would probably reach for it in another palette. A shade like this in another palette to use with this palette, and if this wasn't in here, I would, my number one complaint about this palette would be that it didn't have a dark matte shade, and might even cause me to love this palette less than I do, because I love this palette a lot. So it's gotta be that, because it wouldn't be the same palette if it didn't have that dark brown shade in here, which may be boring to some people, but a deep matte will always have my heart, okay? Then a kind of random one, the Urban Decay OG Naked palette. I thought this was so funny. This actually isn't that old. I got this 2 Christmases ago, like recently, relatively recently, like when Urban Decay discontinued this palette. I got this as a gift from my grandma. So this is actually like a newer palette in terms of when it was made and when it came into my collection. I don't hate it as much as I thought I might, but it's definitely not one that I like am super passionate about. Least favorite shade, I think, I think it's gotta be this shade Virgin, just because, I don't know, like it just doesn't excite me. I mean, most of the shades in this palette don't excite me, but that's the one that excites me the least, that's for sure. It's just a satin, like satin, almost pinky pearly shade. And I feel like that's enough said, truly. My favorite shade, I kind of went back and forth, but I think I gotta give it to Smog. It actually is deceivingly beautiful. It's a really nice, just bronze shade with some gold to it. I really do like the shade Sidecar a lot as well. I think it's a really beautiful metallic taupey shade, but there's something about Smog just all over the lid, blended out. It's such a beautiful smoky eye, and it actually is a really beautiful bronze shade. It's not super textured or sparkly or anything like that, but it is a really pretty shade, and I would say definitely my favorite shade in the palette. Then we got, the next palette I pulled is the ABH and Jackie Aina palette. This is really difficult for me because I literally love every shade in this palette, and I love this palette so much. I really don't think there's any duds in here, and there's really no shade that I strongly dislike. If I had to pick my least favorite though, I think I would go with this shade Trust Issues. It's a really beautiful, like, sheer sparkly gold shade. I don't know why. I preferentially reach for every other shade before this one. I use it in my inner corners, but there's something that just doesn't excite me as much as all of these other shades excite me. So I gotta give it to Trust Issues, even though I feel like some people would say that's their favorite shade in the palette, and it is really beautiful sparkly shade, but I don't know. There's something about it. And if you've heard me talk about this palette before, which I actually haven't talked about it in a while, favorite shade, hands down, is Zam. It's such a beautiful, textured, sparkly, beautiful, like bronzy rose gold shade. There's nothing about it that I dislike. It's perfect in every way. Every time I use this palette, I just want to use this shade, and it has to be that shade. It's such a beautiful shade. Next palette that I'm going to talk about is the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk. I haven't used this palette in so long, and I used to incessantly use this palette, like non-stop all the time. Least favorite shade would go to Desert Sand because I fuck a beige, but Cosmo is in this palette, and Cosmo is a pressed glitter, and I hate pressed glitters more than I hate a beige, and that's some fucking strong. That's a strong statement because I really dislike when they're like light beiges in palettes. But yeah, I just don't use pressed glitters. They're bad for the environment, and I don't want them in my palettes, please and thank you. So that's a no. And it's not even a good pressed glitter, like it doesn't work super great. So I do not like that at all. Definitely without, like, don't even have to think about it, it's my least favorite shade. Favorite shade is difficult. There's a lot of beautiful shades in here. This may come as a surprise, but I think my favorite shade is Cashmere. It is so, I love it so much, and I've loved it ever, like, from when I first got this palette. It is a beautiful metallic taupe. I love a metallic taupe so much, truly so much. My love for a metallic taupe goes so deep. I know that there are so many beautiful shades in this palette, but I'm sticking to Cashmere. It's a beautiful shade. I feel as though it's underrated. I don't know if that's true, but I love it. I love it a lot. Next, the Magic Mini from Juvia's Place. Again, this is a palette that I love a lot. There's a ton of really beautiful shades in here. Again, though, my least favorite shade was easy to choose. Cassie, no thanks. It's not quite a beige, like there's it's like an off beige, almost like eggshell color. But it's still like, I can maybe use it as a transition shade, but it still really doesn't show up on my skin tone. And it's just, I just feel like it's not needed. And I just don't really love shades like that. Favorite shade was pretty easy for me to choose because I love, this is such a beautiful shade, the shade Faso. It's such a beautiful purple blue duochrome. It stands out in this palette. It's, again, one that I want to use like every time I use it. There are so many beautiful shades, matte and shimmer in this palette though, but Faso wins it for me. A random one, but it always seems to come, these palettes always seem to come up in my videos some way or another. The Morphe and Jaclyn Hill Dark Magic palette. And I haven't thought about this palette in depth in a long time, so it was interesting to look at it and think about my least and most favorite shades. My least favorite shade, again, was pretty easy. The shade Poof, don't love it, you know. It doesn't excite me, that's for sure. My most favorite shade was Difficult though, because I actually do love a lot of these shades. I like the depth, I like the tones in here. Like, I think this is a solid palette, especially in terms of color story, I'm not gonna lie. The shade Diversion, right? Yeah, definitely tempted me, but it just, like I said, I have a love of metallic taupes, but this really, it's not the best metallic taupe that I've ever used. And I gotta say the shade Potion beats it out as my favorite because I love a grungy green as well. I love this like dirty olivey tone of green, and I think that it's just so beautiful and I really like it. And so it was kind of like this next shade that my eye was drawn to, like tonally, like in essence, a metallic taupe is gonna be my favorite, so Diversion was kind of my first instinct, but realistically, I don't love the way Diversion like is as a shadow. So like, it is pretty, but it just doesn't give me, I want more from it, and Potion's pretty, so it wins it out. It wins it out for sure. Another palette that made things very hard to decide on, yes, in some ways and not so much in others, Beauty Bay Book of Magic. This is a much loved palette. A lot of people love this, and there are, again, so many beautiful mattes and shimmers in here. It was really hard to think about my favorite. I don't want to choose, like I don't want to, it feels like almost like a cop-out to choose the light beige as my least favorite, but like, I gotta though. The shade Vanish, don't love it, especially in this palette because it's not like there's a light beige in a palette with like no other lighter shades that I might reach for more to use as a blending shade. There are light shades in here. There are already shades that I can use to blend the other shadows out in terms of like my personal preference of shades, shade selection, how I do my makeup. So it's extra irrelevant to me. Like it's extra unnecessary in my opinion to have that shade. I have strong feelings about beiges. I just feel like, especially like a beige that's like, this is my skin tone, like my skin tone. It's a white person's skin tone. It's for, I feel like, white people, because I think a very select number of people are going to actually find a lot of functionality to beige shades, but I feel like I'm probably preaching to the choir here. So I gotta go with Vanish as my least favorite. My most favorite, I'm going with Crystal. There's so many beautiful sparkly shades. There are also deep mattes in here, so, you know, contentious. This palette had a lot of debate. There was a lot of, you know, thought that went into this decision, but Crystal's gotta bring it. It's just, I mean, it's a beautiful duochrome. It's a warm base with a really beautiful green shift to it, and I love using it. It has a beautiful shine. and sparkle, and I love it. So it's gotta go. I gotta go with the duochrome in here. I just, my hands are tied, okay? I got to. Another palette that was so, this actually, out of all of the palettes that I have here today, 100% this was the most difficult palette to choose. The Sydney Grace and Temptalia Quintessence palette. How do I choose a least or most favorite shade? I love all of these shades. And sitting here still, I don't feel great about my decision, but I made it. I had to make it. My least favorite shade, I think I'm gonna go with the shade Interstellar. It's so hard, but I feel like my thought process was, if I covered up Interstellar, I feel like I would still get a lot of use out of this palette. It wouldn't change a lot of functionality for me. I feel like I could make a lot of still like cohesive look with this palette if the shade was gone. But the thought of eliminating any other shade, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. So Interstellar has to be the one to go. And my most favorite shade was, I would say, an even more difficult decision. Like I said, I love every single shade, so I don't know how to choose truly my most favorite, but I think Aurora edges out the other ones. Again, a duochrome. It's a blue-purple duochrome. Those shades just get me, and it's really, really beautiful. My Constellation was a strong contender. The Milky Way was a strong contender. Celestial Bloom was a strong contender. But Aurora beat him out. Aurora beat him out. The tone is so just vibrant and bright. I just love it. Second to last palette. Palette number 9. Lunar Beauty and Moonspell. The random number generator gave me a lot of good palettes, I will say. Like, I was like, this is gonna make for an excellent video. Okay, so this is the worst palette to hold up on camera. It's literally the worst, but this is a palette I really love, and there are a lot of beautiful shades, and it's difficult to eliminate them because I feel like every shade adds something to this palette. I'm gonna go with Nancy as my least favorite shade, not because Nancy gets a lot of hate, okay? People don't like Nancy. I don't hate the way the shade performs. I don't have a ton of issue with like how it applies on the eye. Maybe it's a little bit sheerer than the rest, but like it's not so bad. I just find that I don't reach for like this type of tone that much, especially in this palette. I'm gonna reach for these tones of green more than I'm going to reach for this like tealy shade. So it's just not my personal color preference. Hermione, I actually like this way, the way that this performs less because it gets hard pan, but I like the tone of it. I like how it's like a warm camely, like bronzy shade with a pink like reflect to it. I think that's really beautiful. So I just like the color of this more, even though I like the way that this performs less. But Hermione is also not my favorite. My favorite shade, like we talked about, I gotta go with Macy. The hold that a metallic taupe on me has is, it's so strong. It's so fucking strong. And this is one of my favorite metallic taupes in my entire collection. So sparkly, so beautiful. It looks wet on the lid. I absolutely, oh no, not Macy, Mary. The shade name is Mary, excuse me. Yeah, it's so beautifully glittery, wet looking, delicious. Honestly, hands down, it's that shade as my favorite. And then, what a curveball. This is gonna cause a little stir, I feel. I mean, I don't know how to approach this. I don't know if, like, I don't know the tone of this palette anymore, but whatever, I have it. It's not a secret, I've used it before. The Morphe and James Charles palette. A difficult palette to choose a favorite and least favorite shade because it's fucking gigantic. and it's a rainbow palette. So it took me a lot of thinking. I just stared at this and I was like, okay, how do I approach this? This also may be a shocking thing, but my least favorite shade is this white, just because, and there is a beige in here, so let me explain why. It honestly just comes down to personal preference, because I would use this as a brow bone highlight before I would use a white, and I just would never, honestly, never use a white matte shade. I guess I could use it as like an inner corner highlight, but I just would never do that. I would reach for like a metallic white. Maybe it would be like helpful to have, but like that's just my instinct. I just don't feel any type of way about a white. I would honestly use this more than I would use a white, but I would prefer to have neither. This was second runner-up though. And my most favorite shade, again, might be a bit contentious, but oh my god. But it is gonna be this really dark, it's like a dark brown with plum undertones to it. It's not quite a true like dark plum, but it's like a dark plummy brown. Love this. I mean, it's like the fucking one truly like deep shade in this palette, which is probably why, is 100% why I chose it. I am glad that there's a black in here, but I just feel like I can use this to deepen up most of the tones in here. Maybe not the greens, but pretty much everything else it works with. And I'm not going to choose any shimmers as a favorite because I don't love the shimmer formula. This shade, this purple shade down here, is like the best shimmer in my opinion. It's pretty, but I have lots of other shades that are like this that are just leaps and bounds better. And so that dark plummy brown has got to win it out. All right, so I actually zoomed through this. I think it definitely helped that I like had a look at these palettes before I filmed this. But like I said, if you film a video like this, or if you make an Instagram post like this or something, please let me know in the comments. I would love to check it out because again, I feel like it's interesting. It was fun for me to do like on my own, and I'd love to talk about it with you guys. My filming, yes, I'm still filming. Let me know if you really disagree with any of my decisions. I would love to have that conversation in the comments. Or if any of your favorite shades are my favorites, or what shades do you like across the board hate? Like, do you use a beige? Do you use a beige in your palettes? Do you also hate a beige? Like, let me know. Thank you so much for watching. This was such a fun video to do. Let me know if you'd like another one, because I definitely have more palettes that I could talk about and do this with. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.